Adesh Adesh Namaste. Today I would like to talk about the right approach to the spiritual path and to life in general. I've termed these the 5 Ds. The 5 Ds stand for detachment, discernment, discipline, dedication and devotion. So detachment is not neglect. Now, if you go on a spiritual path and you don't fulfill or you neglect your obligations, this is a cop-out. Your spiritual path, your spiritual discipline, your spiritual path then becomes a cop-out. So we have been given certain things by existence itself, which we are the custodian of, which we must look after. We must take responsibility. So detachment is not neglecting our responsibility to the body, to the mind, to life itself, to the society, to contributing to society. So I'll repeat again, the spiritual path is not about neglecting. So detachment is not neglect. Detachment is not renunciation. The only renunciation we should have are to the fruit of our actions. That is all. Anything else is potentially a neglect. So we develop a healthy detachment by developing the witness consciousness, by operating from our center, knowing that the body and the mind are our vehicles for expression and are not ultimately who we are. That's detachment. The body and mind are our servants, not our masters. And likewise in the world, as per what Krishna taught Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the battlefield of life itself. Act we must. However, we have no rights to the fruits of our action. We must be detached from the fruits of our action. It is the concept of trust and surrender. Now let's look at the second D. Discernment. Discernment is a proper use of the intellect. And the proper use of the intellect is to know the difference. For example, the difference between what is right action versus wrong action. To know the difference between the operator, being the self within, and its vehicles, the body and mind. It's also about knowing the difference between what is perennial and what is ephemeral. That is discernment, the proper use of the intellect. Actually, with discernment will come a natural detachment. It will flow, discernment will flow into a natural and not a forced detachment through a revealed insight of a proper use of. Detachment and discernment are the twin wings leading us to truth and living in truth. So these are the very important concept of detachment and discernment. Next comes discipline. Nothing in life, including the spiritual path, can be achieved without discipline. Discipline is focused attention. It's intentional focus and intentional action towards for a certain purpose and for a certain outcome. Discipline is focused attention versus dispersed attention. With discipline, we align our body, mind, and spirit in order to live on purpose. Next, we come to dedication. Dedication is also loyalty. How dedicated are we? It's a test of sincerity. How sincere are we about doing our daily sadhana? No matter what comes in the way, do we easily give up? Do we easily surrender to our tamasic or rajasic qualities? Or do we push through our barriers? Do we show determination? Dedication will show how serious we are. How serious we are to experience moksha. How dedicated we are, how loyal we are to our growth, to the path, to the self within, to the deity. And lastly, we have devotion. Devotion is the ultimate sweetener. It needs to be there so we don't get hardened towards life, hardened towards the plights of others. Discipline can only take us so far. And we must remember that Tantra sacrifices doing for being. The ultimate state and the original state is beingness. So we must. We must start with doing, we must persist with doing until we can no longer do. Until we reach a point where we need to surrender in totality. This is what happened to the Buddha. He did so many austerities, so many practices. He pushed right to the limit, so much so that he was on verge of death. And then he surrendered in totality. And this is how he reached the state of total enlightenment. So we must do our part and then surrender to a totality in order for totality to do its part. So we must be total towards the deity, totally devoted, in order then for the deity to bless us. So there can be no total surrender without devotion. So I've explained the 5 Ds of detachment, discernment, discipline, dedication, and devotion. Practice and apply these into not only your sadhana, but in your daily life. These are the right approaches to take. And you'll be much benefited as a consequence. Jai Ma.